Hey, welcome to this tutorial on EaselJS. If you're looking at this tutorial, you probably know what EaselJS is already. You need to download EaselJS to get started, and this first tutorial that I'm doing is just going to be an introduction to working with it. So just very simply how to get text and images onto the Canvas element using EaselJS. So we download it from the GitHub repository, and when we've done that, it appears wherever we've downloaded it, usually in our downloads folder. And what we're going to be looking at today is just connecting up and working with it. So the main thing we're going to look at is this lib folder, and inside here EaselJS. There are some examples that come down with this, which are very good examples. They connect mostly to the source files in here rather than this one. This is the one you should be working with as it's the final release. There are also documentations in here as well. So let's get started. I'm flicking over and using Dreamweaver, and I've got a HTML5 page already set up here. I've just put a title in. I better save this to the right place, so let me just go and save as, and I want the one on the desktop, so let's make sure I'm going to the right place. So desktop, EaselJS, and I'm just going to call this intro. Okay, great. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is connect up to that library. So we have our script source, and we just say lib EaselJS. There we go. Okay, so that completes that part of it. Now we're also wanting to start working with the Canvas element. So as a result of that, we're going to need to put a Canvas tag on our page. So we do that nice and easily by putting Canvas, and we're going to give it a unique ID, which might as well be Canvas as well. And we'll set its width and height properties here as well. I'm going to do 960 because it's a popular width, and I'll do 580 as my height. Okay, there we go. Great. So with that in place, the next thing we need to do is just tell the body what to do when it loads this content up. So we're going to do an onload, and I'm going to tell it to run the init function from my JavaScript, which we haven't wrote yet, but we'll do in just a second. So let's get on with that. We'll do our script tag and our closing script tag as well, and then we're ready to go. So we write our first function for this, which is init, which always stands for initialize. And first thing we're going to need to do is make a reference to the canvas. So I'm going to create a variable called canvas, and I'll make one called stage as well while I'm here, just because it makes life easier. Okay, so the canvas equals the document get element by ID, and we've called it canvas, so nice and easy. And we'll do our stage as well. So stage equals a new stage, giving us a stage very much like what you would find if you were working in Flash. And then onto this stage we can now put whatever we want to put. So let's start off nice and simply by adding some text to this. Easy to do. We're going to create a new variable called text, and that is going to equal a new text. In here we can say whatever we want to say on the canvas, so I'm going to just put text rendered on the canvas, and most people would call this a hello world tutorial, but I'm not going to write hello world just to be different. And I'm going to say that it's going to be 36 pixels Arial text, and my final element in here is going to be the color of it, and I'm just going to make it a kind of grey color as we've got a white canvas. Good, so that places it, creates the text element. Now we need to place it and position it on the canvas itself. So if you're familiar with Flash, you'll know that if you use the X property, you position it left and right. So if we say 100, we're going to position that in 100 pixels from the left hand side. And if we do 100 on the Y, 100 down from the top. Now exactly like in Flash, we do stage, add child, and then we actually physically add that text to the stage. It's worth pointing out that if we render text to the canvas, what we're actually doing here is making inaccessible text. So if you're all about accessibility, this is kind of bad practice. It's very similar to if you went into Photoshop, wrote some text in an image, saved it, and displayed that on a web page. You wouldn't expect anything to be able to access that at all because it's pixel data. That's exactly what we're doing here when we render text to the canvas this way. So it kind of works as an example in this tutorial. We'll do it in the next tutorial as well, but after that we want things to be accessible. So just worth pointing out at this stage before we go any further. Next thing we need to do is actually just update the stage to make sure that that's rendered. So we use stage update. Okay, now if all's gone according to plan, we can save this. And there we have text rendered on the canvas, exactly like we said it was going to do. Okay, back into Dreamweaver. Now we're going to add an image to this already very exciting tutorial. So the way I'm going to do that is, first of all, I'm going to take my text variable and make it into a variable that's accessible by more than this function. And while I'm here, I will also add in an IMG logo to load the image, and to display the image in a container I'm going to call logo, and that is going to be my bitmap element. Okay, right, so here we need to get rid of this. Now the reason we need to get rid of this is because we're only going to display the text after we've loaded the image. We could keep it here if we wanted to, but we're not. We're going to put it up later on. And as we're not actually displaying anything, there's no reason to actually update anything on the stage. So I now use my IMG and create a new image. My image source, let me just put a space in there to make it neater, equals image logo.png. So I'm just going to bring in an image. Oh, and I've got a spelling mistake. And then I'm going to do an onload for this, and set image is going to be my function for that. Okay, so for the function set image, which is an event, and I'm going to close that down as well because it makes life easier. And then I'm going to call my logo and say that this is a new bitmap, and I'm going to call that image. So once it's loaded, it will have that ready. I'm then going to add this as a child to the stage like we did previously, and I'm going to position it so that on the x-axis it's going to equal the canvas width. I'm going to do just -400 to start off with, just because I want to be able to see it on there, because I want to put it off the screen and make it come on eventually when we add animation to this later on. And on the y-axis, which is top to bottom, I'm going to do the canvas height divided by 2, and you know, I'm just going to come back 100 pixels there as well. So we have that. Next thing we want to do is add our text as well, so that we have our text up on the screen, and we won't see anything unless we actually run the stage update. Okay, so save, refresh, and we now have our image as well as the text rendered on the canvas. All very exciting stuff, I know. Let's make this move now. So in order to get the logo moving across the screen, let's just change one or two things. So I'm going to get rid of this. In fact, I'm going to cut it to save me typing it later on. And in here we're going to add ticker, add listener window. Now this is going to give us a function that is updated. So if you're from Flash background, you will know that you've got something called a kind of enter frame sort of function that we would have that kind of goes every frame. This is very similar to that. This is just a regular update that takes place, and we're going to call this, it always calls the function tick. And in here we're going to tell it to do something every single frame. So on our x-axis we're going to say minus equals 2. Let's paste in that stage update. So we only update the stage after we've moved the logo. Now if we were doing this with just Canvas alone and not using EaselJS, what we would find here is that instead of just having to call the stage update, we would have to actually clear the canvas every frame and then re-render everything to the canvas every frame. So the stage update here actually does a lot of the work for us, and that's one of the reasons why we use EaselJS, because it cuts out a lot of the more repetitive elements that you would need to use with Canvas. And as a result of that, it means you can just concentrate then on being able to access things in a much easier way with a display list similar to what you would have in Flash. So that's why we kind of use the stage update. Save that, back over here, refresh this, and we have movement and animation. So that concludes this very simple introductory tutorial to using EaselJS. Join me for the next tutorial very soon. Thank you.